All right, this is Justin back with an engineer's perspective. Got another knife review on this beauty. This Japanese blade made by Takamura. This is a 210 millimeter Gyuto. The steel on this one is called Chromax. You don't see it or hear of it very often, really in anything. I'm not sure what it's most commonly used for. The composition of Chromax is here. 1% carbon, 5% chromium, 0.9% manganese, 1.2% molybdenum, 0.5% vanadium, and that's heat treated at 64 to 65 Rockwell. So this stuff is hard. You can see here that it's a Sanmai construction with stainless cladding. So you might be able to see it on the top there, where you've got one layer of stainless, a core material is the actual Chromax, and then another sheet of stainless on the other side. Like I said, the edge is 210 millimeters, which is approximately 8 inches. You can see on the mat there. Height on this at the heel is approximately, what is that? Almost 2 inches. Balance point, as it's blade heavy, is about just in front of the bolster here. It's very comfortable in a pinch grip, or if you really want to get up on the blade like I like to do, it's very nimble out at the tip. These come ground extremely thin. It's a saber grind where you've got this flat up here, and then you've got kind of this blade road that goes down to an edge. From the factory, it probably was, about 10 thousandths behind the edge at 9 degrees per side. And this is where the story or the plot thickens with this Chromax. This is an ingot steel, meaning that it's made in the traditional ways that all of the elements are mixed together in a big hot soup and then poured into an ingot, like a brick, similar to that shape, but probably larger, and then rolled out into a sheet that is then sandwiched with these other two layers, and then it's cut out, and then this is actually hand forged by Takamura. And they're a pretty small outfit, so there's just a few artisans there. But in that process of making that ingot, it's very hot, and as it cools, these different elements in here, especially these chromium ones, will actually form carbides with the carbon, and they'll be like big rocks inside of the grain of the steel. And even after heat treating, it's very difficult to get rid of those. There are some grain refining elements, specifically like this vanadium here, that helps. But basically what I'm getting at is when you have an ingot steel with that much chromium and at that hardness, this stuff is brittle. So at that 9 degree edge it came with, at 10 thousandths behind the edge, when I first went to the cutting board, it basically exploded that edge. It's just too extreme of the geometry, and Takamura, they go for extreme. So that's the beauty of it. They have some, like their R2 series that is known for being like a laser. But this Chromax, really what it is like a poor man's Hitachi Blue No. 2. The edge retention I see out of it seems to be about the same as a blue steel, as a Blue No. 2. It is quite a bit harder, but that brittleness is, you end up getting a lot of micro chipping as you use it. So I have actually increased the angle on this one to about 14-15 degrees per side, and it holds that fantastically. When you get one of these, if you buy one, the finish on here will be a lot more pretty, probably, in most people's opinion, satin. But I've even though it was a very extreme geometry blade, I decided this was a great one to learn on in terms of thinning. So I've actually put this whole flat on a stone and thinned it out. It's probably about 8 thousandths or so right now behind the edge at 15 degrees per side. So it is smoking hot. You cannot feel carrots with this thing. Let's take some other measurements. I think it's approximately 2 millimeters at the spine. And when blades get about 2 millimeters thick, they tend to hold that all the way up until you get to the end of the grind, and then you can see how it tapers at the tip, and you get a very fine tip there. I don't know if you can see that. So kind of a hot rod steel. It's fragile, it's hard. It takes an edge just like blue number 2. It's easy to sharpen despite that hardness, very easy to deburr. So it sharpens great. You just got to keep a thicker angle on it than you would like a blue number 2, but it's really great. This is not a rocker, but I will show the profile. It's when you're cutting with this, you're going to be cutting like that, right? But it's got a harder heel, but not too hard. Sometimes I'll go light if I'm cutting like peppers. So it's got, you can rock with it. It just doesn't work great with that steel and that geometry. What else is there to say? It's a really great knife. It's not a workhorse. It is more laser class, but it's not full laser. It's quite stiff considering how well it cuts and the geometry of this. And that's one thing I really enjoy about these blades that are more of the saber grind that keep this thickness, is they tend to be quite a bit stiffer than blades that are full flat ground. The bolster, that's something to note. Fit and finish on the bolster isn't great. You can just barely see the separation, and then this isn't perfectly polished either. You can see like not the machining with the sanding marks for that bolster. I think I did have to do some rounding with sandpaper in these areas when I got it, but no big deal. Triple rivet handle is not a full tang construction. You can see it's pretty standard Japanese sort of rat tail, longer than what's typical, I would suggest. A very good blade, very nimble. I think it weighs, if my memory serves me, I'm not even going to say I'm going to be wrong. But that's the Takamura. I was going to talk quickly about Japanese blades. So some people are only used to German style cutlery, like this Wüsthof Icon. So this is at, more like 58 HRC. And so what people see a lot are things like this, which is just a steel that you can use to realign the edge. And this will keep a knife like this running fairly well. Honestly, in my experience, like 90% for months probably, depending on your usage, is something like this. Really, especially if you do some occasional stropping on that. However, something like this will do absolutely freaking nothing to this. It's just too hard. It doesn't break down the same way as this, or when you're using this kind of a steel, your edge will get wavy and this kind of realigns it. This will just blunts and microchips. That's all this does. So this doesn't do anything. I have tried it very gingerly, but it doesn't do squat. So if you're one who just wants to put a quick edge on it while you're in the kitchen, you got to get something like this. So this is a ceramic rod, and the ceramic is significantly harder than really any steel you run across. Especially in the kitchen world, you get into things like Maximate and whatnot, then that's a different story. Or there's more to that story. But this is what I recommend. This is just a 12-inch Idaho, I think it's their fine. It's like 1,500 grit ANSI, which translates to I think about 3,000 grit JIS, which is Japanese Industrial Standard. This works great to get you going again. I will say, whenever I use this, if you don't nail the edge on pretty much any knife, this one included, it seems to leave a little burr. And so it's great if you hit it with this and then strop it. Then you're really off to the races, but now you're pulling out two things is kind of a pain in the butt. So I actually don't love this because it leaves that burr. But if you just need to hurry up and finish cutting up those tomatoes or whatever, that's your answer. So that's a quick overview and review, I guess, of the Takamura 210 millimeter Chromax Gyuto with a Western handle. And I'll see you next time on Engineer's Perspective. Thanks, guys. Bye.